I curled up tightly in bed, wrapped in layers of blankets like a cocoon, but it did nothing to stop the chills. My head was pounding, my throat raw and burning like I'd swallowed a mouthful of gravel. Outside, the wind howled with that bone-deep cold that only came near the ocean, damp and piercing. It slipped through the gaps in the window frame and slapped against my face in sharp, stinging bursts. I hadn't gotten out of bed all day. Even reaching for a sip of water felt like a full-body effort. Shaky arms, trembling hands, a cough that rattled through me like loose nails in a tin can. Suddenly, the clatter of pots and pans rang out from the kitchen, followed by Jason's impatient voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. "Mom, are you still not getting up? What are we supposed to eat?" His words stabbed straight into my chest. I forced myself upright a little, swallowing against the fire in my throat. "There's stew from yesterday. Just heat it up, it's already made." Before I could even finish, Kayla's voice tore through the closed bedroom door, sharp and scathing. "I've been married into this family for 8 years. When have you ever not taken care of everything? And now you catch a little cold and just give up? I'm going to my mom's. At least I can eat in peace there." Bang, the front door slammed so hard the windows shuddered in their frames. I lay back down, my limbs cold as ice but my chest burning like a knife had been heated and pressed into my ribs. She walked out in a rage because I hadn't cooked, for one day. And my son Jason just stood there at the door, his face dark and stormy, his eyes filled with blame and irritation like I was the one ruining their day. "Why'd you have to go and piss her off?" he muttered coldly, then turned away, disappearing into the hallway without even glancing at the mess left behind in the kitchen. I couldn't speak. My throat locked up like someone had jammed cotton and shame into it. For 8 years, ever since their wedding day, I had been wound up like a clock, never once letting a meal go cold on the table. Up before the sun every morning, cooking, scrubbing, folding their laundry. I washed their socks by hand for God's sake. When Kayla was pregnant, I stayed up at night making chicken broth, hovering like a nursemaid, more attentive than her own mother. After the baby was born, the moment I heard a cry, I'd jump up and rock that child before they even stirred, scared to death of disturbing their sleep. But now, because I was sick for a single day, I had become an inconvenience. A burden. I shut my eyes. My chest tightened and my nose stung as the tears came, quiet and hot, slipping down my cheeks without a sound. My name is Helen Walker. I'm 63 years old and I live in the quiet town of Santa Clara, California. Back in the day, my husband and I both worked at a local lighting factory. We scraped together enough to send our son to community college. After my husband passed away, it was just me holding things down. 8 years ago, Jason brought Kayla home and told me they were getting married. I emptied my life savings to buy them a house, paid for renovations and even borrowed money from friends to cover their wedding. I thought they'd be grateful. But it didn't take long to realize I was just a live-in maid who worked for free. Every morning I was the first one up to cook breakfast. Every night I had dinner ready and warm on the table. When they decided to have a child, I was there for everything. Every diaper, every late-night cry. If little Liam wet the bed at night, I was the one up washing the sheets. I never complained. Kayla grew used to it. She stopped lifting a finger. She wouldn't even wash her own clothes anymore. Just tossed them into the laundry basket and expected them to magically appear, clean and folded. Jason never said a word. To him, I guess this was what moms were supposed to do. And I tried to push back, to speak up. I remember one winter night, Liam had a high fever. I rushed him to the ER and sat there all night holding his sweaty little hand while the machines beeped and buzzed. When we finally got home in the morning, I collapsed on the couch, coat still on, and fell asleep. When I woke up, Kayla was standing in the living room with a look that could crack stone. "Seriously, Mom? You didn't clean up? Look at this place. What a disaster." She jabbed her finger toward a few empty snack wrappers on the coffee table, like I'd just ruined her life. My throat tightened. I explained, barely above a whisper, "I took Liam to there last night. I was just too exhausted. Maybe it's time you helped out a bit too." She rolled her eyes and gave a bitter laugh. "Oh please. We work all day. If we all stopped doing things just because we were tired, we'd never eat, would we?" And with that, she shot me a glare and stormed back to her room, slamming the door behind her. I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. My fists curled so tight my nails dug into my palms. But in the end, I didn't argue. I just got up and started picking up trash. That day I learned to shut my mouth. To swallow it all and keep quiet. But today I couldn't do it anymore. I had a fever. My throat felt like barbed wire. My whole body ached like I'd been wrung out. I just wanted one day, just one, to rest. And even that was too much to ask. The house had fallen quiet. The kind of quiet that hums with resentment. I could still hear the echo of Kayla slamming the front door. Jason's voice, cold and clipped, still rang in my ears. Every word felt like a blade slipping beneath my ribs. What was I supposed to do? From the kitchen, the faucet was still dripping. I was standing at the sink, scrubbing the pot I hadn't finished washing last night, when I heard Kayla shuffle in, slippers smacking against the tile. She gave me a once-over. "Didn't you say you were too sick to move yesterday?" I didn't answer. Just placed the clean lid on the pot and reached into the fridge for a few potatoes. She grabbed a cup of coffee off the fridge and tossed another line over her shoulder. "Better clean up those toys in the living room before Liam comes down for breakfast." After she left, I closed the kitchen door behind her. On the counter sat a pile of receipts, grocery lists, and utility bills. I began sorting them into plastic zipper bags. My first step in a new system I'd decided on last night. I'd still cook for now. But from this day forward, I'd be writing down exactly how much every meal cost to make. I didn't mention that I'd also dug out the copy of the house contract from 2018. Found it in the back of the storage closet, sealed it in a fresh plastic sleeve. When the kitchen was spotless, I walked into my room and reached for the old leather suitcase tucked high on the closet shelf. It had belonged to my husband. I'd never had the heart to throw it out. Over the years, I'd added all kinds of things to it. Photos, Jason's old school awards, the tiny socks I'd knit for Liam the year he was born, and a stack of bank statements and mortgage payment slips I'd quietly saved just in case. I pulled out the one on top, a record of the $34,000 I transferred to Jason 5 years ago. The memo line read, "Kitchen renovation." I printed out a fresh copy of the transfer receipt and tucked it into a bright yellow folder. On the cover I stuck a note, "Money I paid. Don't forget." Kayla didn't come downstairs for lunch. I left the food on the stove set to low heat, and sat on the couch flipping through old emails on my tablet. One message caught my eye, an unexpected one from Diana, a former coworker from the lighting factory and more importantly my old partner from our part-time days building stage sets for the local theater. "Santa Clara Theater's putting on a light-hearted comedy for New Year's," she wrote. "We're looking for someone with experience to help design and build the set. The pay's modest but we can do hourly. If you're available, we'd really love your help." It had been years since I'd seen Diana. I stared at that email for a long time, my finger hovering over the reply button. A toy car rolled across the hardwood floor and bumped softly into my foot. I bent down to pick it up and straightened the stack of picture books scattered nearby. It wasn't that I didn't have the energy to clean. I did. I just started choosing what was worth cleaning up. Later that afternoon I went to the grocery store. But this time I bought only what I needed. My prescription refill and a small prepackaged meal for one. When I walked in, Kayla was leaning against the kitchen doorway. Her eyes went straight to the bag in my hand. "You didn't get eggs?" she asked. "I forgot," I said. She frowned. "We were going to start giving Liam more eggs this week." Before she could finish, I'd already tucked the medication into my drawer, hung the shopping bag behind the door and headed to my room. The door clicked shut behind me. From the kitchen I could still hear her muttering, "Helen, your memory's really getting worse lately." I sat down on the edge of my bed and opened the yellow folder again. On top I stuck a new note. "Today the clock starts." A faint burnt smell drifted from the kitchen. I didn't move. The soft hiss of boiling soup reached me through the walls. It wasn't until Jason's voice rang out, "Mom, is dinner ready yet?" that I finally stood up to turn off the stove. Dinner went on as usual. Liam mashed peas with a spoon, Kayla scrolled through her phone, and Jason complained again that the pasta was too firm. I didn't reply. I just cleared the plates and carried them into the kitchen. That's when Kayla finally spoke, her tone as lazy as ever. "Oh right, Helen. Didn't you say some old coworker of yours asked you to help with a stage thing? You're not actually thinking about doing that, are you? I mean, at your age? What help could you even be? And it's so far away. Where would you even stay?" She paused, then added, "You should just stay here and help with Liam. I mean, if we do end up moving closer to a better school, what would you even do here all by yourself?" I stood at the sink, rinsing the dishes. The water kept running. I didn't say a word. She was already talking about me being left behind. About this house not being for me. Her voice floated on. I told Jason this place won't make sense for us if Liam starts school across town. You keeping the house would just be pointless. She was saying you'll have nowhere to go. I didn't argue. I didn't answer. I simply looked over at her through the kitchen doorway and smiled. She didn't notice. She'd already gone back to scrolling her phone. She had no idea I'd already replied to Diana's email the night before. I'm in. That was all I wrote. Simple. Final. I didn't hesitate for a second when I hit send. Diana responded almost immediately. Fantastic. Our first production meeting is next week. You can help us test out the lighting and prop layouts. We'll pay hourly. I had built sets for over 30 years. I'd hauled lumber, hammered frames, sketched backdrops by hand. There wasn't a single person in that theater who would ever say Helen couldn't handle it. But I had no intention of explaining any of that to Kayla. She didn't need to know what I was still capable of. She just needed to wake up one morning, realize the house was quiet, and wonder to herself, where did Helen go? After dinner, Jason took Liam to his taekwondo class. Kayla stayed on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Halfway through a video, she suddenly glanced up. Helen. Hey, I was wondering if I could ask you a quick favor. I gave a non-committal hum. He tested the waters. I've got a little get-together with some girlfriends tomorrow. Could you pick Liam up from school? I asked Jason, but there's some emergency at work and he can't get away. I was unloading the dishwasher, drying each plate with a clean cloth. Sure, I said simply. She exhaled in relief. Great, thank you. I walked into the living room and pulled a few crumpled snack wrappers from between the couch cushions, tossing them into the trash. You're pretty thorough, I'll give you that, she said, half distracted. I turned to her and smiled. Yeah. I remember more than you think. She blinked, confused by the comment. But I didn't elaborate. What she didn't know was that I hadn't stopped keeping track. Every grocery refill. Every dollar spent. Jason's full bank account name. Every single time Kayla handed me something to just take care of real quick. Even the package she asked me to mail last week. I'd taken a picture of it. The recipient was her sister, but the sender's name? I didn't ask her why. I just quietly began reclaiming everything that had ever been filed, signed, or borrowed under my name. These days, whenever she asked me to do her a favor, I smiled and nodded. And whenever she assumed I had no other choice, I made sure the key to the door was in my pocket. She thought I had nowhere to go. But what she didn't realize was, I'd already gone farther than she could imagine. The next morning, while Kayla was out having brunch with friends and Jason was at the office, I slipped on a pair of worn-in walking shoes, slung a canvas tote over my shoulder and quietly stepped out the door. The theater had invited me to watch a rehearsal that day, to get a feel for the space. Winter mornings in Santa Clara were always damp and cold, the kind of chill that wrapped around your neck and made you walk a little faster. I hunched my shoulders against it and headed toward the community center. A faded banner hung at the front entrance. Theater Revival Project. Rebuild Together. Diana was already waiting outside. When she saw me, her arms opened wide. Helen, you haven't changed a bit. I smiled. Oh, I've changed. My mind's clearer. My hands might be slower. She laughed and led me inside, chatting as we went, pointing out the stage zones, the lighting rigs, the fresh-faced kids managing props. What we really need, she said, is someone who knows what to look for, who knows when to tighten a bolt before it squeaks, or when to add a second layer of tape even if the first one looks fine. I nodded slowly, my eyes sweeping across the wooden frames and painted flats, structures as familiar to me as my own kitchen drawers. No, this wasn't the kitchen where I'd spent the last decade scrubbing dishes and cooking meals without thanks. But I knew how to make this space hold steady. Just like I'd held up that house for years alone, with hands that never let it fall. When I came home at noon, the house was empty. I unpacked the groceries I'd picked up on the way back. Nothing much, just a few vegetables, and carefully filed the receipts into the labeled plastic folders I'd prepared ahead of time. I jotted down notes on how I planned to use each item. Then I turned on the laptop and created a new spreadsheet. Walker Household, Informal Expense Log, Private Record, was the name of the file. I started inputting everything I'd documented so far. Kayla's package I mailed for her, Jason's request for help ordering new sneakers, along with the size and product link, the last refrigerator restock including the date and full item list. Every single link was backed by a screenshot. Every casual favor came with a timestamp. This wasn't anger. It wasn't resentment. It was a record of labor, full, precise, and mine. After dinner, I was washing the dishes. Kayla finished eating, dumped the last spoonful of chicken soup down the sink, and walked off without even glancing at me. As she dried her hands, she tossed a casual remark over her shoulder. So, did you really not find any eggs, or did you just forget? I dried the lid of a pot. The store I went to was out. I kept the receipt, it's written on there. She didn't respond, but I heard it, that little edge of doubt in her voice. Later that night, after Liam had fallen asleep, I sat at the dining table, laptop open again. I logged the day's receipts line by line. Lunch, chicken breast plus pea mash. Ingredients $5.20. Just as I hit enter, Kayla came down the stairs. Her footsteps were unusually light, like she didn't want to be noticed. She stood behind me for a moment before finally speaking. You've been logging all this. What for? I didn't turn around. I simply reached out and closed the window against the chill. I just want things to be clear, I said. She took a sharp breath, voice rising. Are you checking up on us? Keeping a tally? You think we owe you now? I looked up at her calmly. I'm not keeping track of you. I'm keeping track of what I've done. She stood there, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. You're saving this. Just in case. Right? She said, her tone colder now. In case one day you need it. I said nothing. She let out a bitter laugh and turned back toward the stairs. The creak of the old wood echoed through the quiet house like a warning shot. I locked the document with a password and shut the laptop. My fingers hovered on the edge of the table for a few seconds before slowly pulling away. After lunch the next day, I wiped down the kitchen counter. Kayla was sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, munching on chips while chatting with a friend on speaker. She's been acting so weird lately. Keeping records, snapping photos, even recording audio. You think she's planning to sue us or something? God, I made one comment about her being stingy and she flipped. She laughed, easy and amused, like she was recounting a funny little misunderstanding. At the dining table, I finished copying down today's grocery list, then stood up and headed to the kitchen to marinate some beef. From behind me she called out, Helen, make sure you cook enough steak tonight. Jason loves it. And don't salt the eggs this time. Liam said they were too salty. Okay, I replied softly. Just then Jason came down the stairs, flipping through his wallet. Mom, did you take my credit card? I didn't answer that question. I looked up and asked evenly, the last time you used that card, it was mine, wasn't it? You used it to buy Liam that new game controller, right? He paused, caught off guard. And for once he had nothing to say. I stepped into the kitchen and opened the fridge, pulling out the beef I'd marinated the night before. Just as I turned toward the sink to rinse it, Kayla got up from the couch and tossed a bag of dirty laundry onto the chair behind me. Helen, could you throw this in with the wash? We're heading out soon. I stared at the bag for a few seconds, then turned to look at the sink. The water was already boiling. Steam fogged up my glasses. I pulled them off and wiped the lenses with the edge of my sleeve. Then she added, by the way, have you been a little moody lately? Jason says you've barely been speaking. Look, we get that you're tired, but if you don't do these things, who will? Jason was still standing by the dining room door, thumbing through his phone. Yeah, Mom, don't make everything so emotional. This isn't a company. No one's asking for itemized reports. I kept wiping my glasses slower now. Mom, what are you doing? Kayla asked, a hint of annoyance in her voice. I didn't answer. The pot slipped from my hand and crashed into the sink. Boiling water splashed, some drops landing on her new dress. She jumped back, her expression twisting instantly. Did you do that on purpose? I looked up at her, really looked. Kayla, I said quietly, did it ever occur to you that this pot, maybe it was never mine to wash in the first place? She froze. Jason's brow furrowed. What's that supposed to mean, Mom? I set the cloth down, my voice even. I mean, you eat without saying thank you. You put bills and purchases in my name. Now you're tossing dirty pots my way like it's just my job. I've cooked more meals, washed more clothes, and paid for more things over these 8 years than either of you have. But I'm not your maid. Kayla opened her mouth. Helen, are you what? Menopausal. I let out a sudden laugh. Whether I am or not doesn't matter. What matters is this. Starting today, I won't be paying for your expenses anymore. And I'm not washing anything that doesn't belong to me. Jason's tone sharpened. Mom, come on. Don't be like this. I'm calmer than either of you, I said. Silence dropped heavy over the kitchen. From the stairs, a small voice broke through. Liam peeked down, eyes wide. Grandma, are you mad? I walked over and gently smoothed his hair. No, sweetheart. I just finally understood something. What? He asked. That it's time I take care of me. After dinner, I went back to my room, untied my apron and sat on the edge of the bed. I picked up my phone. The message from Diana was still open. Rehearsals officially begin next week. You'll be managing the backstage props area. The equipment's a little outdated, but you're more reliable than any gear we've got. I typed back, I'll be there on time. Tuesday morning at 7:30, I slipped into a navy blue work shirt, tied my hair into a low ponytail, and grabbed my canvas tool bag. From upstairs, Kayla called out, Helen, where are you going? You've been out a lot lately. Standing by the door, I slipped on my shoes. Just taking care of something. I'll be back before dinner. She didn't press. Lately, she'd grown quieter, more cautious. Especially after Jason caught a glimpse of my ledger the other night and muttered, Mom, don't be so paranoid. That was when I realized. They'd rather believe I was overreacting than face the fact that I'd started waking up. The Santa Clara Community Theater sat behind a modest neighborhood center. The stage was an old black box. The lighting rigs looked like something salvaged from the 90s. But the moment I stepped inside, everything snapped into focus. There are no dishes. No bills. No one telling me I should do this, or should do that. Diana came over and gave me a big hug. You look younger than the last time I saw you. I grinned. Might be because I'm not wearing an apron. We started with the first flat, just the frame and a curled-up bit of wallpaper. I sealed the edge with tape while one of the younger assistants fumbled nearby. He watched me work, then let out a low whistle. You're really good at this. This job doesn't take talent, I said. Just practice. You screw in light mounts for 30 years, it becomes second nature. He sighed. I don't think I'll last 3 months. I smiled at him. Then you've probably never needed the paycheck bad enough. Before we wrapped for lunch, Diana handed me a small envelope. Inside was a signed time slip and a $20 coffee gift card. This is just the beginning, she said. We've got another production coming up. We're thinking about offering you lead set designer. You're not worried I'm too old to keep up? He shrugged. I worry more about people who don't show up. You show up, I'll give you a shot. I tucked the envelope into my bag and felt something I hadn't in years. Not, someone wants me. But I still want myself. When I got home that evening, it was nearly 6. The kitchen was quiet. On the table was a handwritten note from Kayla. You got back too late. We went out to eat. Figure out dinner yourself. And for once I didn't feel hurt. I felt light. So I grabbed my purse and treated myself to dinner out. I was learning to be kind. To me. And this time it felt like living. Friday morning, Kayla stood in the kitchen doorway flipping through her planner. Mom, can you run to the store later? Liam needs healthy lunches for school next week. I was sealing up a bag of leftover screws from the theater, prepping to bring them back for repairs. I didn't respond. She didn't think much of it, just turned and went back to her bedroom, assuming, like always, that I was still the same Helen who said yes to everything. What she didn't know was that I had already started moving my life, piece by piece, out of this house. The first thing I moved was my insurance. 2 days ago, I called my pension account manager and updated my mailing address and emergency contact. Jason's name came off the form. I replaced it with Diana's email. She's an old friend, I told the customer service rep. Someone I trust. My son's just too busy these days. I don't want to burden him. The woman on the line didn't argue. She just tapped a few keys, made the changes, and confirmed the update. Next, I canceled the joint credit card I used to share with Jason. His name had been on the secondary card. Not anymore. The second thing I moved was my belongings. I pulled the old brown suitcase down from the top of my closet. I wrapped it in a soft towel and tucked it inside a storage cabinet in the back of the theater's prop room. No one asked why I brought a suitcase to work. Everyone at the theater was too busy to care what you were carrying, as long as you did your job right. At lunchtime I didn't go home. Diana took me to a little Mexican diner around the corner. Over plates of tacos and warm rice, she glanced up from her food and said, "You know, before you came, our old prop guy used to show up late every other day. Half the time, the backdrop was hanging crooked." I laughed. "Well, even if I skip a day now, this place won't fall apart." She narrowed her eyes at me playfully. "You sure you're not a little too good at this?" "It's not that I'm good," I said, setting down my fork. "I just came from a place where if I didn't do it, no one would." She didn't press. Just reached into her bag and slid a contract across the table. A part-time position for next season's production. "Think it over. Take it home." I nodded and took it, feeling something settle in me. Not excitement. Not nerves. Just calm. Like something was finally beginning to fit into place. That afternoon when I got home, Kayla was out on the balcony hanging laundry. She didn't see what I carried in. A heavy-duty folder zipped tight. Inside were the documents I'd quietly gathered. Records of my financial contributions to the house, screenshots of bank transfers from the purchase, and a savings account card that was still under my name. Jason didn't know about that account. It still held $20,000. Money I'd scraped together working 3 jobs the year he and Kayla got engaged. They never asked how much I had. They just assumed I'd give them everything. But starting today, that card was mine again. I would reactivate it. And every transaction, logged for my eyes only. On Sunday morning, sunlight poured across the kitchen floor, warm and slanted like a quiet blessing. I had just set down the coffee pot when the doorbell rang. Jason stood there, his expression stiff. Behind him was Kayla, holding Liam, her face worn thin with fatigue. "Mom," Jason said, "can we talk for a minute?" I nodded and let them into the kitchen. They exchanged a glance once they were seated. Jason spoke first. "Did you, cancel the secondary credit card recently?" I set my coffee mug down and answered evenly, "Yes. I didn't want it tied to my name anymore." Kayla's face immediately tightened. "Helen, you didn't even tell us. We tried to check out yesterday and the card got declined." I looked at her directly. "That's not my problem." Silence settled like a thick fog. Jason tried to smooth it over. "We're not mad. If something's going on, maybe we could talk it out." "Oh, something's going on," I said, calm as ever. "This house. I paid for most of it. I covered the bulk of the down payment and helped finish off your loan. I'm not kicking you out, but I am taking back what's mine. What I contributed. It's time it was acknowledged." Kayla narrowed her eyes. "What does that mean? You want the title changed? You're trying to take the house back." I pulled open the kitchen drawer and laid a clear folder on the table. Inside were copies, dozens of them. Transfer receipts, bank statements, old screenshots with time-stamped annotations. "This," I said, "is the transfer I made for your down payment. Here's the wire I sent for the kitchen remodel. And this," I tapped the final page, "is the mortgage payment I covered for your first year here." Jason stared down, stunned. He had never taken the time to look at these numbers before. "I didn't keep these because I want to get anything back," I said softly. "I kept them to remind you, this house has been standing for 8 years. And for those 8 years I've cooked the meals, washed the dishes, babysat your child. But my name? It's nowhere on the deed." Kayla scoffed, her voice sharp. "So what, you want your name added? You want the place signed over?" I stood and slid the folder toward them. "No. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just done carrying the consequences of decisions you made. Starting next month, I'm not paying another cent for the gas, electricity, or water. The mortgage, you'll handle it. Liam's after-school programs? That's between his parents." Jason opened his mouth. "Mom, it's just, we're stretched thin sometimes." "I know," I said, glancing at him. "But that's not on me anymore. Who scrubs the pan, who foots the bill? It's time that became clear." Kayla's jaw clenched. Jason looked like he was searching for a lifeline. Then Liam let go of Kayla and ran to me, wrapping his arms around my leg. "Grandma, you're not leaving, right?" I crouched down and smoothed his hair. "Not yet, sweetie. I'm just not going to be the person everyone pushes things onto anymore." After they left, I returned to the kitchen, sealed the documents back in their folder and locked it away in my bedroom drawer. Not because I was hiding something, but because this time I knew exactly what I was protecting. That night, Kayla did the dishes. Jason mopped the floor. The house was quiet, eerily so, as if no one actually lived there. And for the first time I sat on the couch and watched an entire episode of a show. No glancing at the stove. No checking if the fridge needed restocking. The TV played to no audience. I sat there, the ledger on my lap, open to its final page. At the top I wrote the date. Then I drew a single line beneath it. And after that I wrote nothing. Not because I couldn't, but because there was nothing left to track. What needed giving I had given. What was worth keeping I had kept. This book should have been closed a long time ago. Mom, can we talk? Jason's voice came from the kitchen doorway. In his hand a letter. He stepped closer and laid it on the table in front of me. A formal notice from the bank. Kayla's name, officially removed from the secondary credit card. I got this today, he said. Is this really happening? I looked down at the letter. Yes. I notified the bank. That's just their confirmation. He rubbed his palms together, his voice quieter now. So, you're serious? You're really stepping back? I looked at him and nodded gently. But you said you were just organizing things, he said, his tone rising. You said this was just about sorting it all out. I closed the ledger and met his eyes. I did sort it out. The sound of a dripping faucet echoed from the kitchen. Soft, steady like a clock ticking down. He stared at the letter, lips pressed tight. Then he looked at me again, unsettled. Are you mad at us? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't. Anger meant I still cared enough to want change. To fight. To fix. But now I just wanted out. Kayla didn't speak to me the entire day. She didn't cook dinner either. The kitchen stayed empty. Jason ordered takeout. The three of them ate in silence. Liam, sweet boy, snuck a chicken nugget into the corner of the box and whispered to me, Grandma, this one's for you. I shook my head. Thank you, sweetheart. But I'm not hungry. He pushed the box toward me. You always said wasting food is bad. I smiled and stroked his hair. That night, under the warm desk light in my bedroom, I signed the part-time contract from the theater. It was due back the next morning. The next afternoon I closed my door and sealed the final envelope. A list not for them but for myself. At the bottom in firm strokes I wrote 4 words. No more open tabs. I left the house key on the kitchen table. Next to it a simple handwritten note. I don't want the house. What I gave you before, consider it a gift. From now on, separate lives. Separate responsibilities. Helen. 2 days later I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping a cup of tea I'd brewed just for myself. The sunlight warmed my knees. Beside me were next month's rehearsal script from the theater and a novel I'd borrowed from the library. My phone lit up. A message from Jason. Mom, are you there? I didn't reply. I just powered off the screen, stood up and got ready to leave. The theater was setting up lights tonight and I was needed for the build. The switch in the new rehearsal hall was temperamental. When you flipped it, the lights flickered a few times before holding steady. I stood backstage near the set scaffolding, tool bag at my feet, brush in hand. One of the young crew members rolled the final backdrop panel into place. Hey Helen, he called out. This one's all yours. We're heading up to rig the lights. I nodded and crouched down, smoothing out the seam tape. There's something deeply quiet about this kind of work. No one asking what's for dinner. No one chasing me for bills, favors or emotional labor. Just wood, fabric, glue. You do it right, they stay put. Unlike the things back home which never came with instructions, never stayed in place. These days I work full days at the theater every Wednesday and Thursday. Fridays I attend a script rewriting group at the library. The rest of the week? My laundry, books, groceries, peace, living. I'd even restructured my retirement accounts, split into 3. One for daily spending, one marked travel fund, and a third that transfers automatically into a locked savings plan. No joint access. No cosigners. No secondary cards. And for the first time in my life I looked at my monthly balance and thought, this money is mine to spend. One Saturday afternoon, Jason brought Liam over to visit. He stood a little awkwardly at my front door. Kayla took her sister shopping. I thought maybe Liam could see you for a bit. I didn't say much, just stepped aside and let them in. The moment Liam saw me, he bolted into my arms. Grandma, can I sleep over tonight? Jason jumped in. No, buddy, you've got taekwondo later. I can take him, I said calmly. Really? Liam's eyes lit up. Grandma, I brought a drawing for you. He fished a folded piece of paper from his backpack. On it, a shaky sketch of a stage. In the middle stood a gray-haired woman in an apron, hair tied up in a bun. "That's you," he beamed. I took the picture and nodded. "You did a great job. That's definitely me. I am building a stage." "Are you really back on stage?" he asked quietly. "I am," I smiled. "But this time it's just for me." That night on the way home, Jason drove in silence. At a red light he finally spoke. "Mom, you seem lighter lately. Happier maybe." I looked out the window at the street lamp shadows swaying across the sidewalk. "I am," I said. Then I turned to him. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "Not intentionally. But I used to fill in every gap. You reached out, I gave. You didn't say thank you. I assumed it was my job. It wasn't that you took advantage. It's that I made myself available for the taking. But I'm not doing that anymore." He nodded slowly. "I get it now, even if it took me too long." "It's not too late," I said. "You still have time to be a husband and father who doesn't live off someone else's sacrifice." He gave a small nod and the light turned green. Back home I pinned Liam's drawing to the fridge. Then I made a cup of my new rose tea and sank into the couch. No one fought me for the remote. No one asked what was for breakfast tomorrow. This stage I'd built wasn't flashy. There were no spotlights, no applause. But for once, the person standing in the center of it was me.